kia ora, we are at the...
Otago Farmers Market.
There we go.
Not the Dunedin Farmers Market.
No, Otago Farmers Market
Yep.
on a Saturday morning. And we have Michelle here, who's the manager of the market. And would love just to hear for you a bit of an overview about what the market is and what you're trying to do here.
Yep. So we're an authentic farmers market, so that means that we only deal really locally, and we also only deal with food-related products. So we don't have candles and blah blah and everything else. So it's really to sustain the local community, to feed the community, we're a fairly big market compared to a lot around the country. At the moment we're at that kind of almost winter, so it's maybe 60 stalls, but we can end up sometimes up to 80 stalls and vendors around the market.
Cool. And what are some things that you're trying to do for sustainability to reduce your impact?
I mean, we try and recycle and we try to say minimum waste as much as possible. We deal with dealt not compost, so any of our waste actually does go back to them and they deal with it and turn it into compost for the community and for Dunedin as much as we can. So we try and keep it as minimal as possible, and we've still got a ways to go, but and I think ways to do that would be that people just bring their own. We're always trying to remind people to bring their own cups, bring their own containers, as less packaging as possible. But it's an educational, slow process. But people have kind of got to that first hit of knowing to remember to bring their bags. But it's just kind of becoming a habit of everything else. So that would be nice to see more of at the market. And also, if we can reduce our packaging a lot more as well. It's certainly improved a lot over the last couple of years of vendors, bag your own. There is some things where there is still bagging happening, or it might be compostable bags, but obviously we're trying to remove single use as much as possible. But it would be good to see more of it.
So we're just selling a range of organic nuts here. We've got mostly walnuts, also some almonds and hazelnuts.
What do you think about in terms of sustainability when you're selling or growing?
Well, in terms of growing, it's all organic, so we don't use any, the only fertilisers that's used is mainly kelp-based and that sort of stuff. And then we have transitioned. We used to have plastic bags, but now we've got all paper bags, and then a plant-based cellophane as well for the shelled nuts there.
So we do take that seriously, that whole recycling, compostable as much as possible. And then we've got our wonderful cup library from Laura at York made this for us, which has been really popular. But everyone should have a cup with them. They should just carry those things. But easier said than done, isn't it? But this is a popular little thing.
So how does this work?
So if someone hasn't got their cup, they just grab a cup from here, and they can go to any of our 3 coffee vendors around the market. And they will, save a single-use cup. So that's what we want to do.
And then they bring it back here.
We'll wash it. We wash it.
We wash it.
Yeah. So it's obviously a bit more labour our end. And obviously it'd be nice to have more volunteers for that sort of thing as well going forth, especially if we end up doing more type of dishes. But then we take it over to Cobb & Co, and there's a steriliser that we use there at the moment. So there's a bit of running around our end to make that happen. But it seems to work. But it's good to see no single-use cups though at all the coffee. That would be in my ideal world, of course. But I think that that's just an educational process, really. And we end up with a lot of people from out of town here in Otago. But I guess as people start travelling, they will remember to bring their cups and bits and bobs.
Just a behaviour change over time for everyone.
It all takes time.
Right, so what are you selling today?
I sell honey.
And how far away do you live?
This is from the Mini Toto. So it's 120 k's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple of hours.
Yeah, a couple of hours. Yes. Yep.
Cool. Why? Well, what does your company do to try and be sustainable?
Well, we have our bees all around, so they're into pollination, etc. So, and we also take back our bottles. I'm trying to do mainly glass, but we've been stuck with trying to get supplies of that. So yeah, so we take back our old bottles and recycle them. Yep.
And why do you think bees are so important? What do you like about bees?
They're fascinating. You never stop learning about them, and I'm probably quite passionate about bees. Without bees, we wouldn't have any. Like we lose about 40% of our food in the world. So yeah, anything that needs pollinated, bees do it. So yeah.
And what are some threats to bees at the moment?
Varroa mite, that's the main one. It's a little mite that came into the country probably 15 years ago, and it's decimated. It's killed probably 98% of wild hives. So so really the only way bees can stay alive now is if we look after them. So if a beekeeper has them, you'll see a swarm. They'll last a season, and then the Varroa mite will wipe them out. So it's pretty serious, and we've also lost a lot of genetics with that. So like we used to have wild drones coming in and breeding, and now we don't have that. So we've lost all that genetics. So it's quite serious. Yeah.
And are there any challenges you face economically or sustainably in being a beekeeper?
Yes, the price. Honey prices have, they're kind of like most things, but they've taken a real hit with the Manuka. When people found out that Manuka wasn't actually quite Manuka, and they were adding other honeys to it, our price went from, our wholesale price dropped about 80%. So that's a huge hit. So yeah, but it's sitting there at the moment. I mainly sell it at the farmers markets. I don't sell it in drums.
What's been the biggest challenge for you as manager of Otago Farmers Market?
I've actually only been in the job since February.
Okay.
But I was assistant manager for 18 months before that. So I guess the biggest challenge was just getting through COVID and sustaining everyone through and keeping us as an online presence during that period.
Oh, right.
And just those those sudden changes that have happened over that time. But and at the moment, our biggest challenge going forward is there's a lot of older vendors who will be retiring, and a lot of there's going to be a lot of farms that are just going to disappear, get gobbled up by housing, get gobbled up by whatever. And it's like, who's the next generation of farmers coming through? Who are the next young ones that are, the horticultural ones who can actually step onto, lease some land maybe and do some small plots? Because once some of these families, often it's quite a few generations, but it stops.
Yeah.
And so that is a real concern of who else is coming up the ranks, who can invest in it. But it's not like people have to have a huge. They could have a small plot, but actually they could do a lot with a small plot.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see more of that happening, and see, like Waiwai up on the. They're a young couple and they're doing amazing stuff out at Purakanui. I can never say it.
Purakanui.
Yeah. And so seeing more of that happening maybe.
Yeah.
But that's possibly our biggest concerns that are coming up.
Wow.
Because we're an authentic farmers market, we rely on primary produce.
Yeah.
And that's what makes markets. That's what makes people turn up every week to buy their fresh greens.
Yeah.
To keeping the families healthy.
Yeah.
So if you lose that, you're stuffed really. So.
That is such a good point, and because in this course we're talking it's environmental sustainability, but it's financial, but also social sustainability, and this is such a great example of that intergenerational, that the longevity of farmers being in the local area, and what does that look like for the whole sustainability of the market and the whole community, feeding a community.
And if you haven't got family that are going to step into that next generation and stay on the farm, I mean most of them are going off to who knows where, but if it's not what they've got planned for their life, and it takes years of that of learning, horticulturally how to grow something, and if it's totally lost, that is a pretty sad fact, really, isn't it? And I guess for a lot of people, it's financially, how do you get into the game if you can't afford the land? And the land is getting, you look at other places around the country, Pukekohe, and all that amazing land has been gobbled up, with housing. Amazing soil, you sort of think up on Maroon that hopefully that never happens there, but never say never, the world is changing so fast.
There's lots of pressures on the land.
And yet that land is valuable in so many other ways. And
the proximity too, like Purakanui you're talking about is like 20 minutes away, 25 minutes away. It's like, it's really close in terms of growing food really locally.
Yeah, it is.
It's amazing.
And this is where your population is, and we don't want to be getting food in from huge big guys, like we want to, you want to support local small producers, which is what authentic farmers market is all about.
Yeah, totally.
Hi there, so we're selling tonics and tinctures made out of wild harvested local herbs and plants. We use everything, so all our any waste is composted, everything is gathered sustainably, and we use literally absolutely every part of the plant that we gather. All of our labels are made out of a stone-based product, so there's no plastic involved with our labels. We have a bottle return policy, so we will reuse any bottles that are returned to us. We'll also donate $1 per return bottle to the Wildlife Hospital here in Dunedin. We're big on sustainability. That's a huge part of what we stand for.
And also in terms of that social sustainability, I didn't realise that you had an online presence during COVID and still serving the community and finding other ways to do that.
We tried as much as we could, having to jump, but also you've got a lot of older vendors that wouldn't have been able to go online or do the deliveries, but in a lot of places like Etrix were still doing deliveries locally, and a lot of places were doing, in YY Permaculture were doing deliveries, so it still was happening with a reasonable amount of vendors where we could, but it would have been nice to also have been able to do it more, and because obviously the supermarkets during COVID, they were all allowed to be open. We weren't, so there was a whole lot of that. Everyone's in the same boat, really, for that.
Gosh, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Because then by default it goes to the big guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and these guys miss out. So, and there's going to be fallout from that, which there was a bit of fallout. So.
Yeah, some financial pressure on the vendors.
I mean, they've got pressures anyway with weather and all the extremes of all of that. So. But you've just got to keep sustaining those local growers, local producers.
Yeah. Okay, what are you selling?
We're selling pork today here at the market.
Nice. And can you tell us a bit about your pigs and
so we're Havoc Pork. We're South Canterbury. It's about 3 hours down the road there, north. Our farmer Ian grows all our pigs there. He focuses a lot on the natural behaviours, so they get to run around outside and do a lot of that sort of thing. We have stuff like tails, which means that our pigs aren't all crammed in tiny sour crates and eating each other while they're growing up. They stay on mum a little bit longer, so they're there sort of an extra 2 or 3 weeks to most commercial piggeries. It means they pick up a lot of the natural immunity and that sort of thing. So we don't give our pigs any of the antibiotics or growth promotants. They run on cider vinegar and garlic, so the old-fashioned way of things there. We bring everything into Kaika Valley here, process in-house. We've been doing the market down here since I think 2003 when it started up. What else would you like to know, I guess?
Yeah, what are some sustainability challenges? Could be financial, could be environmental.
Challenges is we're based in Makiki, which works out pretty good because just the other side of Timaru, so we're about a half-hour drive from the pork abattoir. but that's the southernmost abattoir in New Zealand for pork. So basically any pork you're getting Dunedin further south is had to travel sort of that distance at least. Some of the challenges sort of financial in that we're competing with a lot of international pork where there's no standards on anything basically. Some of the pork we have coming in from overseas, like a lot of your cheap bacon in the supermarkets and all of that, is product that's been imported from overseas and then processed in New Zealand. Some of that, a lot of that actually, they're importing twice, so they'll import it from a country like Ukraine that we would question to somewhere like Denmark, so when it comes into New Zealand it's imported from Denmark and sounds a lot more acceptable to people. Sort of a lot of deceit that we're sort of competing with. Sustainable side of things, to sell at market, everything's all vac-packed in plastic, which is a little bit of a frustration for us. That's something we were sort of really investigating and getting into sort of options for coming into COVID. But the COVID's thrown up a whole heap of other challenges, so that one's sort of sitting on the back burner at the moment there. Positive sustainability wise, Ian, our farmer, always laughs that pigs don't fart. So basically they're not ruminants, so we don't have that whole rumen digestion, cellulose, methane sort of intensity going on there, which is quite interesting. A lot of people sort of don't know that and are quite interested in pursuing things that are a little bit better on that front at the moment. We've got lots of customers sort of talking it and asking questions.
Oh, yeah, could you explain even a bit more about that? That is really interesting. So what do you mean, like what's the challenges of methane? And
yeah, I mean, a lot of the challenges are bureaucratic just as much as anything. I disagree with a lot of some of the models that they use to model it on. Here in New Zealand, a lot of our stuff's grown outside, so it's on grass and it's sequestering carbon as it's doing it, and the models that they're using don't really account for that very well. What it ends up doing is it puts a whole heap of these emissions associated with eating meat that sort of riles up a lot of the antis and sort of perpetrates that fake news thing. Sort of Kiwi meat's not the same as your factory farmed overseas stuff, I suppose, but it's when you treat with policies and that sort of thing, it gets treated a lot the same. But I mean, of course, that doesn't affect us being pork and our animals doing what they do. One of the side products that comes out of what we do is a heap of really good organic matter. So all the bedding, straw and that kind of stuff, of course, mixed in with the pig fertiliser. I don't live on the farm, I'm living a little bit closer where I can do this end of things, and we pop out to it's on the plans coming up for us to pop out to the farm and grab a big truckload of all of that stuff to freshen up all of our vegetable gardens and things like that. So we're getting a lot of those byproducts coming out that are really helpful like that. Yeah, I suppose that's that.
Cool. Okay, that's awesome, Michelle. Thanks so much for your time. What a pleasure.
Good luck with it all.
Yeah,
Thank
will
you.
do. Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.